But okay, so you mentioned the dream that where did this dream with you and Pat start, and like how did that even what was the origin of that?
So I was in sales, Jack, before I got into the restaurant business, and I've never been married. I have no children, and so I always knew in the back of my head whatever this is, and I know a lot of people think they want to own a bar or restaurant until they really do,
Ooh.
and I know that's and I support anybody that really wants to do it. I just say really make sure you get your facts before you do it and understand really what you're getting into because there's a lot to it. But anyway, I always knew I kind of wanted to, but I was smart enough to know I didn't know enough about it to take on something like a Maggie's. So I wasn't even looking at Maggie's. I was thinking just like more of like a shotgun tavern. Maybe I could live above it, put a cute girl behind the bar. I could flip some greasy cheeseburgers and just keep life simple and be fun and have a place my buddies could hang. So that was what I was thinking. So I was kind of socking my money away, and I was in sales. I worked with Doug. We were over down here in South City with John Schicker at McMahon. I was a finance manager, director for him, and I did very well. The Schickers were very good to me. Doug was always very good to me. Always, I kind of went where he went. So I did well, and I kind of, like I said, I didn't have those other responsibilities with the family, which really made it, that when you don't have to, when you can take a risk when you're not thinking, man, if I do this, my kid, there's a little leeway there, so I was fortunate in that regard. So I knew I wanted to do it and kept it in the back of my mind, kept kind of socking some money away. And then a good friend of our family's is Harry Belli, and Harry was the original owner of Maggie O Brien's, and he owned Harry's. I don't know if you're old enough for that, but
Not
that was a big. So right up the street from Maggie's, he opened up. It used to be an old muffler shop,
okay.
and he turned it around. Matter of fact, one summer, all I did was clean the weeds out of the fence line right there on Highway, what used to be 40 that went right through there. There was an exit, but he turned an old muffler shop into a place called Harry's, and it was kind of a fine dining, but also at night a place where all the athletes would go there, all that kind of stuff. It kind of went from Maggie's up to there because at one time that was kind of Maggie's without the fine dining. So he killed that, did really well with it, and at some point, I don't know if he was maybe around 70 or some there whatever around that time that Pat and I got involved. But Pat had worked for Harry forever. He had basically bartended for him right out of college. Pat went to played soccer at UMSL, and then graduated, and then was bartending for Harry. And I think he just made good enough money he didn't want to leave. And then he started a catering company out of it.
Pat did.
And he was going to start his own. Harry was like, "Hey, man, use my equipment, use the name. It's already established, and we'll do a percentage thing here, and you get the whatever." So that worked out great. And so Pat was involved, but Pat had been around that location forever. Like when I say forever, since like 1980. So out of nowhere, I'm in Harry's having a cocktail, and Harry just came up to me and said, "Hey, Eddie, give me a sec. I want to holler at you." So we went out, outside or something, and he said, "Hey, I heard you're looking for a tavern." And I was like, "Yeah, and I thought he was just going to say, hey, my buddy Joe's got a place." I didn't know where it was going. And he said, "Well, I'm looking to sell Maggie's. Why don't you think about Maggie's?" And I started laughing. I was like, because it's huge. The
Yep.
place is big. And I was like, Harry, I wouldn't know the first thing to do. I'm thinking about a greasy cheeseburger and a cold beer. I don't know anything about it. And he's like, "Yeah, but your brother Pat does." And I was like, "All right, well, then it kind of made me go, well, okay, let's see." And that kind of started the thought process. So then maybe a week or so later, I just went down and had lunch with Pat or had a beer with Pat or something. I don't remember how we did it. And I just brought it up to him. I said, "Hey, man," I just explained to him exactly what I just said to you. And I could tell he was open to it. He was like, "Man, Harry's thought on it, and I think he was right. I didn't know it at the time, but his deal was, yeah, Pat knows how this goes and how to run this, something this size. He's already done it forever. But Pat ain't gonna be the one want to be the guy out front shaking hands and kissing babies. He's like, you need somebody out there that's gonna be, the front of it, and then somebody that handles the back of it. And you guys are perfectly set for that. Not that Pat was great to
He's
be
great.
around and whatever, but he wasn't the guy. That we both had our own thing that we were good at. So
What made you good at it? What made you good?
I don't know. Well, I guess just literally, everybody thinks this about themselves, but having a beer, with sitting down and having beers with people and joking around and just saying hey and whatever. I enjoyed it. I knew a lot of people in the industry. I was out running all the time, and we'd get all of a sudden, we started getting a lot of restaurant and bar owners coming in that weren't, a lot of athletes, that was happening. And that was good, for business. It kept us going, going up and up, but like I say, if it wouldn't have been for him, I was such an idiot in those days. I'd have just grabbed all the money out of the register and just, who knows what I'd have done with it, but because he's my brother, he's my partner, I didn't tell, he ran that place and did it the right way. And I learned over the years a lot from that. And had a little pretty good background with, working with the people and maybe being a little, a leader as far as, being a boss or something with my previous background. So that helped a little bit. But Pat definitely was the cog on the keeping that thing going as far as us knowing what we were doing for a place that size. Because it's hard enough to do with a relatively smaller place, but when it's that big, there's a lot to it. So that was kind of how that whole thing kind of fell together. And then so once I brought that up to him, then him and I kind of eventually started talking to a bank or two, and I think we were told no 2 or 3 times, thanks, but no thanks. And then we got who's a good friend of mine now, Paul Gross, but at the time, I think he was at the time they were with Pulaski, I think, but now he's with Carrollton Bank. But anyway, he gave us a shot. And it's so funny now. It's all relative, but back then I can remember pulling away from that meeting thinking, I wrote a check to start the process, like a down thing, a downstroke. And I can remember just like kind of white knuckling driving away thinking, what the hell did we just do? And looking at my brother Patty, he's like, oh, what's white as a ghost? Like he didn't know. And that money now would know if, it's all relative, but if I had to go get that kind of money now, I wouldn't think twice about it because it was so minuscule compared to what things are now. It just kept getting bigger and bigger, which we had to grow with, and blah 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 blah. So, but that always kind of stands out to me how the money, it doesn't seem nowadays that it was that much, but then it seemed like there would be no way in hell I could ever pay it back. And what the hell did we do? And it seemed like a mountain of money,